Hello citizens and welcome back. In today's video I want to talk about data running, its purpose and how it can compete against third-party tools and external communications, as well as challenges CAG might face while implementing it. As always, if you like this video, sacrifice a like and a comment to the YouTube algorithm and subscribe for more. And here's a shout out to our amazing patrons for their support of the channel and the Armory. At CitizenCon, CAG showed us a demo of what the new star map is going to look like. This includes the ability to save coordinates and navigate back to them. And it was hinted that this feature will be later used to mark locations of resources and we'll be able to sell these locations to other players. So it is quite likely that this location sharing will be the first version of data running. This, however, brings some challenges. A major one that comes to mind is groups of players circumventing the system completely. If I can obtain exact coordinates of a certain point in space, then why not just share the value of those coordinates with someone directly instead of putting them up for sale? This prevents the data from being bought by someone else as well as any transaction fees. For example, let's say that you're flying around the planet, scanning for minables, and whenever you find something good, you post the coordinates to Discord. A few hours later, your friend wakes up, gets into their prospector, and starts mining at the coordinates you marked the day before. Now, CAG did mention that you will be able to share markers with people directly, so there might not even be a need to go to an external tool for this. But I imagine there might be some limitations to direct sharing, like that both parties have to be online or that you have to use the map terminal to send the data. There are also some considerations with regards to multiple server shards, but I will get to that later. I suppose that a similar problem applies to trade data as well. If I'm at an outpost, why wouldn't I take a screenshot of the current prices and post it along with my location to a Discord channel for traders to check real-time data? Or better yet, upload it to a public tool for anyone to use. To be fair, I would argue that this problem doesn't need an explicit solution. No matter what CAG do, orgs and groups of players will go around the data running mechanics whenever possible to maintain secrecy or to speed up delivery of resource coordinates. However, CAG could implement some soft solutions, meaning things that would make external tools unnecessary or impractical, such as sharing resource locations within your party or org without any limits on distance or the necessity to upload the data to a terminal. Speaking of resource locations, this brings me to the second major challenge. CAG have mentioned that we will be able to do this based on scan data and star map markers. The question is, how is this going to work before full server meshing is achieved? If I gather data on resource locations in one session and then I later join another session, how will the game guarantee that my resources will be there? This is assuming that my second session will be on a different server shard, and this by extension applies to selling data to other players. Now, there are two possible solutions. The game could guarantee that the resources will be there based on your data regardless of your server. This would in theory be the ideal solution, but it would likely cause issues with the resource generation system. However, I think that a similar solution might be needed for the final iteration of server meshing when we only have one server, because it will be necessary to persist locations of resources indefinitely until they are extracted. The easier but temporary solution would be to make data only viable on the current server and only for as long as that shard is running. This would provide incentive for players to gather and sell data as well as for other players to buy this data from brokers. Though again, this might become obsolete once server meshing is completed and we only have one server. Another concern is with dedicated data running ships. We don't have a conclusive statement on this yet, but right now it seems like anyone will be able to gather data and quite likely transport it using any ship. So the question is, where do data running ships come in? Right now, I would guess that CAG intend to implement data running missions that would be specific to these ships, or these ships would simply be better at them because they can hold more data at once. But we will have to wait for more details to be shared on this. Ultimately, CAG have to create a valid economic gameplay using data running. The supply side of things is pretty easy. If there are NPC brokers that will pay for data, players will be willing to sell to them. You could determine the value based on the value of resources the data points to, or perhaps the relevance of the trading location it comes from. The demand side of things is a little bit complicated. First of all, you have to facilitate a way to trade data and provide data to be bought even if no players are selling. This would mean data gathered by Quanta. Next, you again have to price the data somehow. For resources, this is still simple. just determine what the value of resources at the location is. For trading, it's a bit more complicated and really depends on what the data looks like, but I guess you could also calculate the price difference of commodities and determine the price of the data that way. But most importantly, you need to find a way to display the contents of the data without revealing too much information. This could be simple. For resources, you could display the type, number of deposits, and materials contained. For trading, location and commodities contained in the data package might do. But generally, I think that most traders will be interested in the prices of commodities at different locations since that's what drives their income. This would also possibly incentivize them to have scouts in various locations to gather data and runners to transfer it between trading hubs. This would also drive the data running profession as a whole. It gets more complicated with resource extraction. Salvage contracts are technically a form of data running, and they are immensely successful. But this success can be attributed to the fact that randomly spawning salvage is pretty rare right now, so CAG can test salvage contracts. On the other hand, miners are able to find resources very easily, so I think the interest could be pretty low, unless the available data leads to safe and profitable mining locations. I believe we will see mining contracts at some point next year, possibly even before data running is implemented. It would be a good step for CIG to first create the demand for data about resources or trading and cover it with NPC generated data, and then allow players to supply this data to others. And with that being said, that's all for tonight. What do you think? Will data running be able to compete with third-party tools? Are data running ships being redundant? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, fly safe, and I will see you in the verse.